I guess we'll just get into it. I'm like excited to be doing this with you. It's funny, I was like having to do research on a lot of companies coming down here, as one expects, and one of those is obviously FoodSaver, but the brand is like, it's actually kind of huge. Like we're talking about it and you know what it sort of stands for in the larger. Better. Hello. And sort of what the brand is all about. Can you give us just like, for those of us, the uninitiated, like a little bit of background into the FoodSaver brand, just like an overview, and then like how it fits within the sort of larger Newell portfolio?
Yeah, definitely. And I for sure needed the same intro when I was recruiting with Newell. So just as background, Newell is a big company here in Atlanta, and we own a lot of brands you probably know of, but you might not know that they're Newell. So we're divided into 6 really large business units that serve different kind of periods of people's lives. So we have a baby brand, and they own like Rico, and then we have home appliances, and they own Oster and Sunbeam, and Pullman, and many other brands. So I work in the food business unit, and within that business unit, we own Rubbermaid and Calphalon, and FoodSaver is a brand. So FoodSaver is actually an incredibly large brand that you might not have heard of if you're not in the category, but sells hundreds of millions of dollars a year. We're in over 20 markets in the world. And we are the #1 brand. We're 80% share, really established the entire vacuum sealing. If you don't know what vacuum sealing is, it is when you take, a plastic bag or roll, put food in it, it vacuums the air out completely, and you can save food, what we say up to 5 times longer. If you are prepping for the end times, this is a product for you. And so it is an incredible business model in that it is, the razor. So once you recruit clients and they continue to back your bags and all.
You guys have had some pretty insane growth these past couple of years.
COVID, like every other business in the world, has really transformed FoodSaver business. So we grew over 60% in 2020 during COVID, and continued that growth last year. And so it has been an incredible change. A lot of different things. You have just the basics of the supply chain and actually getting 60% more product here than to the really brand questions of who are the new people that are coming into your brand, trying it, versus kind of your tried and true audiences. Many.
So what would you attribute the growth to? Like, is it that new customer subset? Like what?
Right. So I think there's 2 things. There's kind of the macro forces externally, which were things like people just stopped shopping as frequently because when the pandemic started, you didn't want to go to the store every single week, and so you needed products that helped save food. I think for many people in this room and many people in America, we are food insecurity for the first time. Like you went to the store to get ground beef and it wasn't there. And that really changes the way you think about shopping and stocking up. And then now, that really has rolled in. A lot of people have talked about it. And the food space is over here. That is actually something, by the way, that many in their lifetime who have seen deflation on the idea that of your paycheck. So it's really those macro forces. And then at the same time, a lot of people so home appliance and what that really meant was like millennials kind of buying their first homes in their apartments before, but now they have the space, right? Less likely to marinate, just things that took more time, making sourdough bread, right? I mean, we all saw those trends. So that all really came together to changing use occasions, and it's also changing target.
Like that changing target market, you said millennials, I imagine that's the majority of it. But then like, how do you adjust your comms or marketing strategy to kind of speak to these people? Because like, that's not the consumer prior to the pandemic, right? Like it's a very different demo.
So prior to the pandemic, our consumer is exactly what you would imagine, older couple, rural, suburban. They have, maybe a huge deep freezer in their basement, and they're very price conscious. This was all about saving food, saving money. That was the proposition for them. And then the new people coming into the brand are much younger. They actually speak a little bit male. They're some home buyers in the house, so their frequency of use is just a completely different occasion. It wasn't about these like big bulk buying. It was about for Thursday night and impressing your friends with your skills at the grill. And so it was such a huge insight for us to find that was the audience that was coming into the brand, and really changed the way that we did our communication. So our communication previously was very value focused and very focused on saving kind of even specific types of foods that maybe eat heavy and that. When we found this new audience, it was changed not only kind of the messaging to a little bit more about and leveling up and trying new things, and the flavors change, veggie, we even consider tofu, which is huge for this brand that was very like meat based for a long time. We had a lot of men in the brand, and then changed our connection strategy. So this brand was born of the infomercial. If you kind of have seen it, I'm going to take Casey's term of gusty would be maybe a description of our brand too, right? Yeah, I'm taking that forever. That's great. So leveling it back into kind of the modern world to this new audience. And so there really is no aspect of the shifted our media from CRTV by purchase time. So, for mainstream media buying much more conversion tactics. And then the content is much directly against audience and kind of those different occasions.
I saw you guys did a really cool partnership with Nick Giovanni, I think, from MasterChef,
Yes.
right? Can you talk a little bit about that? Yeah.
So we, started into kind of like a really macro influence. We had many micro influencers, and what the brief was really about that insight about trying to find new cooking techniques, and we wanted to find someone that made it easy and make it feel fun. Help is a key insight is the idea that like doing it for the first people, and they're not sure that they do it, and so demo it in a fun and engaging way, and connection for us. We actually found 70% of purchases. And so you have the people that use you, and you can influence others, but you can also use it. That's why Nick was a partnership for us and continue fun way, but also
once you guys have people through the door, I know you mentioned like loyalty is a big part of the customer journey, right? Like the razor blade, razor model. Can you talk a little bit about, how you re-engage those customers and, the power of repeat purchase? And then like, once you start to build this sort of customer base, do you guys think about them as a community? Like, how do you talk to those people who are like, have been in sort of the ecosystem for years at this point?
It's a great question. So we are a razor blade model. We get 50% of our revenue from the appliances, but 50% from the consumables that go with it. So it is really critical to our entire business model that we continue and in. And I mean, I think there's no brand in here that doesn't want to talk about a subscription model, right? Where you kind of turn off people's decision making and turn on just like a continuous news stream. And we certainly have a brand that can do that. And that's something that we're on, very basic optimizations. This is everyone is kind of like subscribe and save, right? But there were just very basic optimizations to make that happen. So 5% of our partners, Amazon, but then we have other partners, and when earlier we're talking about customer media and buying customers. We have other customers like even big at Walmart that still haven't kind of on subscription. Even working with your customers through their content, their media teams to kind of, and then of course retargeting. Actually find people that have market, people who we know absolutely bought an appliance forever, and
I know one of the big innovations you guys launched was actually a reusable bag. So like thinking about sustainability as sort of a brand practice. I know your background is Coca-Cola,
Yeah.
working specifically on designs.
yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about the innovation that went into kind of that decision and how it's been received by consumers?
Yeah. So I think, like you said, I came from Coca-Cola. I came from Dasani, which is a water brand. And if you're in any brand that has plastic as a base for your brand, so I had a lot of experience from that world. Like I launched bottles, and we launched water machines. So a lot of that thinking and helped kind of influence that. I would say what's interesting about the brand is at its base, it is a sustainable brand. Talking about saving food, which is one of the highest wastes people have in their kind of energy. Right? But the bag help, really want to, and it took a huge amount of technical bag that could sustain the pressure of a bag. If you've ever, a vacuum machine, it's like a can of Coke, and pressure is on the contents inside of like these full bag that could let people sous vide within a few months. We were huge response to insight.
Like in line with that, how do you guys keep tabs on what the next innovation is or what people are looking for? Are there like obviously focus groups and stuff like that, but like are there any sort of, I don't know, more nuanced or innovative techniques that you guys are having?
Yeah. I mean, one of my favorite things as a marketer that has been doing brand marketing for over 15 years and so many focus groups and surveys and things is that, now with communities that are naturally built and you can get a lot of insight. So we have a fan group page on Facebook started by a fan, not us, just called FoodSaver fans, tens of thousands of people. And they are so active. They are so into the brand. They're so into like the tips and techniques, and they're sharing with each other, and they're explaining to each other how to use it and which model do I want and what consumables. And so they are such a great us to have because they're the ones that are asking for things. Like for example, we have people on there that are like, oh, I found these containers from FoodSaver from like the 80s at my Goodwill, and I love these. And you're like, these people are going out of their way on eBay to find this item. Like, I think we could make that item, right? Like, I think, we have a sale built in here. And so I think that transformation needs to have that back and forth much faster.
Very cool. Got two more questions here. First, you guys have done a really good job building a brand that's been resilient and not only resilient, but has excelled in the face of just like insane change, right, over the past couple of years. Like, is there any advice that you can give to folks in this room who are trying to figure out, like, how do we maintain brand consistency or a consistent identity, like, throughout what feels like, just tumult after, unending change?
I mean, I think that, look, we're lucky to have a brand that's going to benefit from the tailwind, right? Like, the tailwinds definitely leaned into what the brand already stood for. But, like I was saying earlier, we walked away a little bit from value messaging, not fully away, but, we walked more into kind of the cooking sales. Well, look, we're walking into a recession. Inflation, value is really important to people. Look, turning value message back on, right? Just like everybody else. I think it's that kind of flexibility. They're always true about your archetype, like But that doesn't mean that you're not going to shift within what is the consumers are feeling today in the market. What's going to solve?
We are a Brand Innovators Conference, and so I have to ask a question about innovation. What innovation or marketing innovation are you most excited about heading into 2023?
Well, we have a lot of innovation hitting the marketplace. I kind of joke every time I start a meeting, like the brand that you see, even in June of this year versus the brand that you see in June of next year. So we have completely refreshed all of our packaging, which for some reason during my entire brand marketing career is something I have done on every brand I've been on. I wanna not do the packaging on the next brand, but yeah, so we're redoing our packaging, we're redoing our advertising. We have 2 key appliances that are launching that really lean into simplicity and recruitment, and then another that leans into insights that we know about loyal consumers. So like a game-changing, patentable innovation. And then really like looking at our entire framework, price and package, which sounds so boring, but it's kind of the building blocks of a brand, right? Do you have the right package at the right price? It couldn't be more right now. A lot of our packaging. So those are some of the things that are coming up.
Looking forward to seeing all that. Any questions from the audience?
I'm renaming the target market. We've been calling them food enthusiasts, but what you describe is what I'm like. They're like people that love to, they love to cook and show off. Food dudes. You get the trademark. Right. It's techie. That's what we describe. It's like people who love technology, who are interested in like learning a new technique. It's about the technology. Love to hear it.
I actually just had my first exposure to the product last weekend where I'll call it a fancy fisherman who kind of like fishes on the weekend and catches incredible stuff. And it pulled out some black bass that he has a whole freezer dedicated to his wind, and it was absolutely stellar. So love that part of it. How do you think about the sustainability piece? Because I know when you're in the consumer market, especially in this environment, are you seeing that message is more important, less important? It speaks to a different part of your target. Like, how does that fit in given what's happening in the climate?
I mean, for sure, sustainability has been a pressure point on the brand in recent years. And so that's why we've done the launches like containers and reusable bags that allow people who really, don't want to use single-use plastic an alternative and still can participate. And, ultimately, we also have to tell the story about how this helps save, right? And to your point, like at a very high quality, it's not just like saving food, but saving food, and it's just as good as when you had it before, and it's that quality message. And I think what's interesting as we go into a recession, people's kind of like value equation changes. A lot of times the rule of thumb is like sustainability becomes less and less important as people are more and more concerned about like their pocketbooks. But I think this might be an interesting version of a because it is so critical to people and they are interested. So I think the value messaging is going to become more prominent just because of the right thing is there, but sustainability as a value message, right? Meaning like don't waste money that you.
Any other questions?
FoodSaver is a global brand, right? So what are the plans for FoodSaver globally?
Well, first of all, this is Hayden, and he's on my team, and he does all the ambassador work and the social work. Great. So globally, our biggest markets are Canada, Japan, and then we have a big presence in Europe. South America is a place that we think there's a lot of opportunity and kind of match eating patterns, household income, and home appliance sales. Decide where we're going to go next. A lot of opportunity, and then to really grow in market. You're doing a project for Korea, also like a very high household income, tech savvy audience. So it's really like matching the key insights from market that is going to kind of align with.
Any other questions? I don't know about you guys, but there's still like this childlike delight that happens when you press the button and like everything gets smaller. And I will admit that here today. I won't make you raise your hand if you still get that excitement. Thank you. Thank you. But it's very fun. It's like, what else can I put in this bag and make it get really smaller?
Right. If nothing else convinces you to buy a FoodSaver, it is just very fun to watch.
It's just very fun. It is very, very fun, surprise and delight. Great Christmas gift opportunity.